Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Album Spotlight, the show where I put the spotlight on a new album in progressive rock that I want to share with you guys. And I have a really good one for you guys today, a very much anticipated album here at Nathan on Shuffle. This is one of my favorite artists of all time, and I'm excited to talk about Phideaux's new album, Automoto Animus. Phideaux is an artist that I've been following for quite some time. I think his most notable release was Doomsday Afternoon in 2007. That's when I came into the group. Following that was an incredible 4-album run that's one of my favorites in the genre. You've got Doomsday Afternoon, you've got Number 7 in 2009, Snow Torch in 2011, and Infernal in 2018. And now we've got a long wait between albums. So looks like 8 years since the previous album. And so there's been a lot of buzz about this record, and, it's been kind of in the works or announced for quite some time. I remember thinking this was going to come out the last couple years, but it's finally here. And it's an album that, wasn't quite what I was expecting. So I needed to kind of change my expectations a little bit. But once I realized what this album was doing, it fully clicked with me and connected with me, and it is now one of my favorite releases of the year. And why I say that is because those albums that I mentioned were more full-blown progressive rock, many of them concept records. Snow Torch in particular was like this big epic piece of music, kind of Phideaux's answer to like Thick as a Brick and Passion Play and those kinds of albums that are just one song across the whole record, split into two halves because of, vinyl essentially splitting it into the two sides. But so much epic music, big, great proggy playouts and musicianship and, all the bells and whistles. And there was some epic tracks on Doomsday Afternoon and Number 7, and Infernal was this really big, sprawling concept record with a big epic on it as well. It was basically part of this trilogy of records. The Great Leap was the beginning of it, with Doomsday Afternoon and then Infernal closing it out. So there's a lot of epic progressive rock here, a lot of conceptual pieces. And that's what I was going into Automoto Animus expecting and excited for. And, it's not quite as grand of scale as those records. It's not quite as progressive in the kind of classic prog sense. But it's a really fun record with just really excellently performed and produced power pop with little progressive rock leanings. And it's just an enjoyable, fun listen front to back. And it ends with a sort of epic. So it gives you that proggy flavor right in the final track, this final near 15-minute long progressive epic track with kind of that power pop feel baked in. So it's a different kind of feel than what he's done on his recent records, maybe delving back into his past. Some of his earlier records were a little bit more pop-centric and, rock without as much prog influence, but it's still him. It's still his artistic nature. Phideaux is an incredible genius when it comes to this music, and he's one of my favorite musicians. I had the pleasure of meeting him when I went to see Phideaux in a club in LA. I believe he's based out of LA, and fantastic human being. I did a review on my blog back in the early days of Snow Torch back in 2011, and he was very complimentary and posted it on his socials and all that kind of stuff. And it was one of the most popular posts on my blog at that point in time. So it was just it really warmed my heart to see this progressive rock artist that I idolize, being so kind to me, this lowly blogger and now YouTuber. And so I have a lot of affinity and affection. And not only do I have those warm feelings towards Phideaux and who he is as a person, but I just feel his music really speaks to me, and it really works for me on every level. I think he pulls influences from a lot of the same places that I feel my influences. I think the Beatles is especially felt on this record, with that power pop vibe. You get a little bit of ELO in the mix here. You get a bit of Supertramp. But on his previous more prog records, you get bits of Jethro Tull, bits of Genesis, of course, and just this really artistic sensibility. He's a very unique personality, and all his records have very interesting lyrics that, sometimes can feel a bit surreal, sometimes he's making a statement, but through this kind of almost sci-fi fantasy lens. So there's a lot going on with the music, a lot to unpack and uncover. And to me, that's the best kind of music, is where there's extra layers, there's extra meaning. Things aren't immediately accessible sometimes. You have to really delve and figure it out. It's kind of a musical puzzle in a way. But this album is a great gateway into the world of Phideaux, I think, because the tracks are just a bit more accessible than they have been on these proggier releases. So for those seasoned fans of Phideaux, this might be a bit of a departure than what you might expect in delving back into his history. But for someone new to this artist, I think this could be a fun starting point, and then delving into his more progressive works after this. But to give you an idea of the track list here on this record, it starts with Do What You Will, which is a fun poppy track with a strong, almost new wave 80s kind of feel and beat, some sinister vocal work. I really like Phideaux's vocals throughout this record. He's really come into his own, and they're really strong and varied. Like some tracks, he's more kind of pleading and has this more higher tone. Sometimes he has this more darker, sinister, almost deeper tone. And I think it fits the mood of each track. He's really thoughtful about how he develops each of these tracks and gives them life, and, gives them this kind of world that they inhabit based on the thematic lyrics and the meaning behind the track. Hey Humanity is a bouncy, fun, almost Beatles-esque power pop style song. There's some great orchestration halfway through that kind of brings to mind classic ELO. Driving to Destruction has a great driving piano rhythm with bass and drum accents and a great guitar sound on top. Has that similar bouncy feel, that Beatles-esque ELO quality to it. Some great harmony vocals as it repeats that robotic Automoto Animus title. And the piano work, especially in the second half, really reminds me of Supertramp. I think it's a really fun, great song to listen to. And that's what's great about power pop. And it brings you in, it's accessible, it has hooks, it's fun to listen to, but there's an artistic statement being made, and there's more if you delve deeper into the track. Stay With Me is more of a ballad-esque song that starts a little bit dreamier, has those pleading vocals from Phideaux. Almost a ballad on the record, but still really beautiful to listen to. Charlie New is another big bombastic track that starts with this big orchestral swell, but then kind of scales back to just piano and vocals and instrumental accents. Definitely have that Beatles-esque quality in this one as well. Strong piano melodies, just a fun track to listen to. Siren in the Storm is a beautiful track, great acoustic guitar, almost country-ish kind of electric guitar accents and great vocals, and it has this wailing female vocal that's really beautiful and expressive, reminding of Pink Floyd's Great Gig in the Sky. Enigmatic Terminus is kind of brings all these different pieces together, brings back that Driving to Destruction, vocal as it repeats, and you repeat kind of those themes from the record. Great sinister grooves, great reprises, great violin work. And then we get into Legend of Mary Jo, which is the 14-minute, pièce de résistance on the album, the big epic track that brings a little bit of that progressive rock flavor that I was looking for in Phideaux's work. But it starts with a fun piano melody, a solid groove, kind of a storytelling vibe. And you add in some swirling harmonies and some great keyboards and soaring guitars as well. And it just feels like it keeps picking up the pace. It has this momentum and this beat that just keeps feeling consistent as it builds on top of each other. And soon you get to kind of this break in the music, these whispers and vocals kind of surrounding you before you get into the most proggy section of the record. That's where he goes all out with some cool instrumental prog. With Yes-like bass and chaotic guitar parts. It kind of reminds me of the opening of Machine Messiah by Yes, and it gets into this cool, spacey, space rock vibe and cool, chaotic, proggy stuff from Yes and Genesis, before we kind of close it down with going back to the main melody of the track, just played on piano and voice in a calming fashion. So a really fun track. It's varied. It has a lot of different sections. It brings in that power pop vibe that this record's going for, but then brings in that proggy instrumental section that really beefs it out and gives this a lot of weight and, makes it a great centerpiece for the whole record. So, and it's a pretty short listen. It's 42 minutes and 55 seconds. And so it's kind of designed to fit on vinyl, one half each half goes on a different side of the record. There's a whole host of people who've played on this record, but of course Phideaux's the main man doing all the songwriting, and he does most of the instrumentation here and the vocals. He does piano, keyboards, bass, acoustic and electric guitars, and vocals. He's got Joe Berardi on drums, and a whole host of people. I believe Rich Mauser makes this, Fernando Perdomo on guitars, a bunch of names that I'm less familiar with but contributed on this record, and it makes for a really fascinating, fun listen that I've really been enjoying. It's a great summer record and has a lot of variety, and I love the power pop vibes that he's pulling into this record to give it more of that bouncy, upbeat, kind of Beatles-esque feel. And you still get a bit of that progressive rock flavor, like I mentioned, with that epic at the end. So all in all, I've been enjoying this record. It's one that grows on me over time. That's just a fun listen. I can put this on anytime and find myself enjoying it. And I would strongly recommend it. Like I said, it's a great little entry point for Phideaux, but keep in mind that some of his other works are a bit more expansive, a bit more conceptual and, progressive. But this is really a great slice of power pop with some proggy influences and Phideaux's signature style, which has always connected with me. I think he's a brilliant songwriter, a brilliant composer, brilliant artist, and I'm really grateful that he's part of my music collection here. And I'll gladly add this in as one of my new favorites in the collection. So please listen, please go seek this out. It's really probably going to be my favorite record of July, seeing the slate of albums coming out through July. And it's a strong contender for one of my favorites for the year. Definitely a strong contender to be in my end-of-year tournament where I pit all of my favorite albums together against each other. So thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully you appreciated this review. Please check out the record. Let me know in the comments your thoughts about Phideaux. The record comes out July 6th, which... I'm thinking of putting this out July 5th, I believe, so it's probably going to come out tomorrow is the plan, but it's available to order on physical media. I'm getting my vinyl in today, later today. It's coming in the mail, so I'm excited to listen to this proper on vinyl. So thank you guys, and I'll hopefully catch you in a future episode. Bye! Enjoy the music, everybody!